But I completely agree. I just want to backtrack to that because, again, with mythology that starts on the internet and people just reading snapshots, they could always say, okay, well, you've said I accumulate iron as I age. Iron can make oxygen behave badly in my body. Therefore, being anemic and avoiding iron and not eating meat must be a good thing then. Whereas that's not the case either, because there's different sorts of iron. So we've got like heme iron, then we've got unbound iron, then we've got iron in hemoglobin. So maybe, again, for people who would potentially misinterpret that and think not having iron in your blood or wherever is a good thing, just sort of unpack that a little bit in terms of the different sorts of iron. And obviously supplements, that sort of iron, got ferrous chloride, and then we've got the magnetic breakfast cereal and the iron filings kind of iron. So I think it's, again, sort of just so it's clear to people, so the information doesn't get misconstrued, which that's what people like to do on the internet, and then it ends up hurting people, basically. That's why I invited you on, to really unpack these myths really slowly to stop the nonsense.
I appreciate it. So the bulk of the iron in our body is in heme, and that would be the dominant by far. It would be about 80%, maybe a little bit higher, but it's far and away the biggest source of iron is in heme iron. And heme is nothing more than like a catcher's mitt that can hold iron, and then oxygen is attached to the iron, and we live by virtue of that relationship. There are some components called iron sulfur clusters, and they're very structural. They play a pivotal role, principally inside our mitochondria, is where they have the biggest role. But there are a number of enzymes that need to be iron sulfur clusters, and think structurally. Think of the little erector sets that we played with when we were little. Those are iron sulfur clusters. They have a very powerful relationship in that context.
Aren't they in each of the complexes in the mitochondria as an iron sulfur complex? And also, I think I'd imagine a cytochrome C. And don't the mitochondria actually make these iron sulfur complexes? Because I kind of say they're sort of cages for iron, so it behaves itself, sort of in simple terms, and then it does what it's supposed to do. Because again, iron, we don't want people to be frightened of iron. We just need them to understand it has to be regulated. So if you carry on, I kind of interrupted.
No. Think of iron as like a tiger.
Yeah.
And it needs a lion team. You better have someone around who knows how to work with it. And so that where things really came off the track, where the train came off the tracks, was back in 1941, at the outset of the Second World War. And it took place in the UK, in Canada, and in the United States. And they started adding iron filings. It's not organic iron, it's inorganic iron. It's literally take a steel bar and scrape iron. And they started adding iron filings to the wheat flour in those three countries. And then after the war, to the countries that we supported and that we fed. And now it's pretty much worldwide. But in 1941, they were adding iron filings. And here in the States, I don't know whether this took place in the UK or not, but in 1969, here in the States, the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, wanted to increase the amount of iron in the food system by 300%. So a threefold increase in iron. And 20-some scientists from around the world flew to Washington, D.C. with one question. What are you trying to do? Kill people? And so in a magnanimous gesture, the FDA backed off the 300% and just increased it to 50%. That's still a staggering amount of iron being added to the flour. And then it's important to know that today, there's 9 different forms of iron being added to, I'll just speak for the U.S. food system. Again, I think it's probably pretty much worldwide, but certainly in the U.S., there's 9 different forms of iron being added. And it's important to know that all 9 have been proven to cause cancer. And you're like, why would they do that? Well, the whole basis of this is that the biggest mineral deficiency we have on the planet is iron deficiency anemia, which I've gone on record formally as saying is a bold-faced lie. And maybe in subsequent conversations we'll have a chance to really tease that apart, because there's a lot of confusion about it. But as you point out, iron is not something to be feared. It's something to be regulated. It's something to be very thoughtfully ingested. And let me just build on that a little bit more. We've been talking now for about 30 minutes, 35 minutes. And I want the listeners to know that every second of every day, we replace 2.5 million red blood cells in our body. It's actually taking place, the breakdown is taking place in the spleen, and the replacement is taking place in our bone marrow, in our long bones, the thigh bone, the pelvic region, the hip area. But the bone marrow in that those long bones hold almost half of the copper in our body. It's a staggering amount of copper. 50%, almost 47% of our copper is in those long bones. And they are the agents of producing red blood cells. So we're tearing down 2.5 million a second. We're building up 2.5 million a second. And this is going on all day long, all night long. And over the course of 24 hours, we make 200 billion red blood cells. It's absolutely amazing. And these red blood cells live for 120 days. But every day, you got to take 200 billion offline. And what's really fascinating about that is that to replace 200 billion red blood cells, we need 25 milligrams of iron. And think about the 100 milligrams of copper. Think about the alleged 5,000 milligrams of iron. In my body, 26,000 milligrams. And what I need every 24 hours is a small pittance, 25 milligrams of iron. And that's a bit of a surprise, but here's what will shock you. 24 of those 25 milligrams, 95% of the iron that we need each and every day to replace those billions and billions of red blood cells comes from what's called a recycling system. Formal name is reticuloendothelial system. Took me 2 years, Sara, to figure out that meant recycling. And so 95% is coming from a recycling program run by copper. 1 milligram, 5%, comes through our diet. And you know who figured that out? Famous team of nutritional detectives, McCants and Widdowson. McCants was a physician, and Widdowson was a gifted biochemist in London. And they did this work in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And their series of dietary analysis is the bedrock of nutrition. But they were the ones who said we only need 1 milligram of iron a day because they knew about the recycling system. So here's the catch. They've moved the recycling system out of the picture, and they're telling people you need 25 milligrams in your diet. And you alluded to the iron-fortified cereals. And when I grew up, I mean, I'm embarrassed to tell people what I used to eat as a child, but, you know, sugar frosted flakes and things like that, Pop-Tarts, lots of, oh my goodness. But in any event, look on the side of your cereal box. They're based on a half a cup is what the nutrient profile is based on. A half a cup.
I took lots of photos of things in the supermarket and all the iron, not just in the US, but in the UK. So I'll put them as a picture in the video because it's hidden everywhere and you need to read it. Absolutely. And then the other thing that I asked Dr. Seneff once about, why does the body not just hold on to minerals? Why do we keep losing them? Because just for people, I know people are really interested in magnesium, and for some reason that gets pushed out of us really, really quickly and we have to replace it. Whereas for whatever reason, the body over a long period of evolution holds on to the iron and lets just a little bit out. So I think this is a really important thing about minerals is we don't need to just take all minerals every day. Certain ones leave because of stress or other factors, and then the body for whatever reason has this iron recycling system, and just to leave it alone and just top it up from just ordinary sort of whole food